The NFL season is on the horizon. And of course, when we know the NFL is nearing, that means there's going to be training camp as well as preseason games. And what comes along with training camp and preseason games is season ending injuries. Now, we know there have been more injuries, but first notably in week one of the preseason, Niles Paul, tight end of Washington, went down with a dislocated ankle, out for the year. Big blow to Washington. And to follow that up, wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin, who's coming off a stellar rookie year for the Carolina Panthers, is now out for the rest of the season with a torn ACL. The NFC South might just be wide open now. That was Cam Newton's best target. Can Carolina hold on? And should the NFL think about shortening the preseason? I'll answer both of those questions next. Welcome back to the Best Damn Sports Blog. Back again, this time to talk NFL. First time in a while. Season's on the way, so it's only right, but jumping right into it. We already know about all these training camp fights, but also when training camp comes around, as well as preseason games, there are injuries. And Kelvin Benjamin, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers, will be out for the rest of the season. And that is a huge blow to Cam Newton and the Carolina offense. Luckily for them, their defense is stout, and the NFC South is not a great division with Atlanta, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay as the other three teams in the NFC South, all mediocre at best. So despite losing Kelvin Benjamin, they still have a good defense to fall back on. Their offense wasn't even great last year, but when it came to the passing offense, Kelvin Benjamin was right there with Greg Olsen as the most important assets to Cam Newton. And now with one of them out of there for next season, well, now you got to rely on Greg Olsen, who's going to be a great tight end, but now teams can possibly lock in on him more, especially if they don't find a great replacement, which I doubt they'll be able to find. Replacing Benjamin isn't just like replacing a typical number 2 receiver. He is a number 1, and he's 6'5". He has 73 receptions, 1,008 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns, and that was just in his rookie season. This guy is going to be a great receiver for years to come. This is a huge loss, and I feel bad for him, and hopefully it doesn't hinder his career going forward once he is able to get back on the field. But as I was saying, this isn't just an easy replacement. Benjamin's production was tied for first in receiving yards on the team. First in targets by 24 targets. So that lets you know he was Cam's go-to guy. Cam looked for him the most. Benjamin is a 6'5" target. Those aren't just easy to replace. And when it comes to notable free agents that's available to the Panthers right now, we're talking about Reggie Wayne, who's probably the most accomplished. Then you got Wes Welker, Brandon Lloyd, Donnie Avery, Santana Moss, and Robert Meacham. Those are the most notable receivers. Reggie Wayne, who has 779 receiving yards last year, who we know is tailing off when it comes to production, is only 6 feet. Wes Welker, we know, is only 5'9". He only had 464 yards receiving last year. Brandon Lloyd, 6 feet, 294 yards. That's nothing. And then from there it goes down. That is Carolina's options right now. And when it comes to their receivers that's left on their team, you got Jared Boykin, Ted Ginn, and rookie Devin Funchess, who is 6'4", who has a problem catching the ball. And ironically, he suffered a hamstring injury 20 minutes after Kelvin Benjamin's injury that put him out for the rest of the year. That's what Cam Newton has to work with. Now, Funchess could end up being a good receiver. He was a high draft pick, so they have high hopes for him. And maybe he pans out. But with those notable receivers, you got to think Carolina has to go for Reggie Wayne. Get production, although he can't duplicate what Benjamin brings to the table because he's not a 6'5" target. He cannot go up and get the ball how Benjamin can. And that's what Cam Newton needs, per se, because his ball tends to sell on him. He has a little bit of an accuracy problem, let's just be honest. So that's why they tend to go for these taller receivers, bigger targets. And now it looks like they're going to be left with a rookie and Greg Olsen when it comes to their big targets for Cam. As I said earlier, luckily, NFC South, it still might not be a problem for Carolina to win it with their stout defense. New Orleans is still shaky. I don't know about their defense. They did improve it a little bit, but they lost Jimmy Graham. I don't know how their offense is going to look. And in Atlanta, we know their offense is good, but their defense, they improved it a little bit. But I don't know. I just have my reservations about those two. I still think Carolina could win that division. But when it comes to competing, like for the Super Bowl and NFC Championship, with Kelvin Benjamin, I didn't see it to be likely. But without him, the likeliness is out the window. They don't have a chance. Unless Randy Moss walks through the door, Jerry Rice, and I'm talking about in their prime. That's the only way. Or unless they trade for a premier receiver. But why would any team trade a premier receiver? I'm going to try and make this quick as I transition. Niles Paul of Washington, tight end. One of the top 5 to 10 tight ends in the game. Suffered a horrific injury, dislocating his ankle in preseason week 1. And that sucks for Washington and Niles Paul. I wish him the best, a speedy recovery. But it brought me to a larger point that I wanted to discuss, which was, is the preseason too long? Training camp, there's really nothing you can do about that. There's going to be injuries, and there is going to be injuries in preseason anytime football is played, anytime men are bashing their heads into each other. There's going to be injuries. I understand that. But will these greedy owners realize that for the interest of the game, that they need to cut this preseason? But I know they won't. Why would these greedy owners? 4 preseason games that they can sell tickets at regular season prices. Why? Well, let me change that, 2, because they probably play 2 home and 2 away. So 2 more games they're able to sell at regular season prices. Why would they want to cut into that, make it 1? If they went to the 2-game format, which I think is necessary. But also from the other end, the football spectrum. Preseason is really for the end of the line players trying to make the roster, for the coaches to decipher who is going to back up what quarterback, who's going to back up this offensive lineman, that type of thing. So that's where this gets kind of tricky, and it's tough because at the same time, I understand that point of it too. And I can't knock that. But at the same time, we watch year after year these great players go down to injury in preseason games. There's got to be a happy medium somewhere in between. But I know the owners, they're going to want to continue to make money. And the players, I don't know if this can be collectively bargained. I'm not going to front like I do know. But if it can be, the players need to somehow get the preseason cut to 2 games, make it more reasonable, maybe extend training camp, get a little more scrimmages, although from what we see now, there can't be a scrimmage without a fight. But hopefully that changes. The NFL steps in about that. And maybe they have more scrimmages. But in the end of the day, football is football when I think about it. I'm talking myself out of my own argument. Just thinking about, if you're going to run into another man, sometimes you're going to land awkward. Sometimes an ankle might get ran over. When there's 11 on 11, men running, trying to knock over the next man in front of them. That's just the laws of physics. The human body cannot take this. So the less football they play, the better. So I wish the preseason would end up being sacrificed in that scenario. Maybe 2 games of the preseason. But at the end of the day, the money is the motive. The NFL is a business. The owners want to make as much money as they can. And the ball will keep rolling. And the money's going to keep coming in. And the players, Whether they're injured or not, they can be replaced, and those tickets are going to keep selling.